Ever wonder why Rome conquered half the known world whilst everyone else was still squabbling over villages? It wasn't just about having tough soldiers or clever generals. It was the kit, the gear, the absolute genius of Roman military technology. Think about it. For centuries, Rome didn't just win battles. They dominated. They crushed. They made victory look inevitable. And today, we're diving into the 12 most brilliant, most devastating, most game-changing weapons and the innovations that made Rome utterly unstoppable. From siege engines that could level cities to a secret weapon you'd never expect. Number 1 on this list, that held the entire empire together like glue. Stick around till the end because that final entry isn't what you think it is. But once you understand it, you'll realize why Rome didn't just conquer the world. They kept it for centuries. Right. Let's get stuck in. Number 12. The pilum. Now, at first glance, you might think a throwing spear is just, well, a throwing spear. Nothing special, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. The Roman pilum was a masterclass in practical engineering. Picture a spear, but with a long, thin iron shank that did something absolutely brilliant. It bent on impact. Intentionally. When Roman soldiers hauled these things at the enemy, usually from about 30 meters away, two devastating things happened. First, that heavy iron tip could punch straight through shields and the armor like tissue paper. Second, once it struck, the shank would bend, which meant your enemy couldn't chuck it back at you. Brilliant. But here's where it gets properly clever. When a pilum stuck into an enemy's shield, which happened constantly, the bent metal made the shield so heavy and awkward that soldiers had to drop them entirely. Imagine that. Your shield, your main defense, suddenly becomes a liability. You've got this bent spear dangling off it, throwing off your balance, and you've got to make a choice. Keep the shield and struggle, or drop it and be exposed. Either way, you're knackered before the Romans even reach you with their swords. The pilum wasn't just a weapon, it was psychological warfare wrapped in iron. It broke enemy formations before the real fighting even started. Simple, effective, absolutely genius. Number 11. The gladius, the Roman short sword. If the pilum was the opening act, the gladius was the main event. This was the signature weapon of every Roman legionary. Short, deadly, and perfectly designed for what the Romans did best. Disciplined close combat, unlike the long swords used by Celts, Germans, and pretty much everyone else, the gladius was only about 60 centimeters long. That's 2 feet give or take. Lightweight, easy to handle, easy to control. Now, here's what made it so bloody clever. Roman soldiers didn't fight like they do in films, all wild swinging and dramatic flourishes. No more. They fought in tight formations, shields up, and the gladius was used for short, brutal stabbing thrusts. These thrusts were far more lethal than slashes. A slash might wound you, scare you, make you bleed, but a thrust that goes straight into your vital organs. Game over. The compact size of the gladius also meant soldiers could fight shoulder to shoulder in the Roman phalanx without accidentally whacking their mates. Combined with their legendary discipline, the gladius helped Rome dominate battlefields for centuries. It was simple. It was practical. It was utterly devastating. Number 10. The plumbata, the Roman throwing dart. Right. This one's a bit of an underdog. The plumbata was a small throwing dart with a heavy lead weight attached near the tip. At first glance, it looks like an oversized lawn dart. Not exactly terrifying, is it? But in the hands of Roman soldiers, it became a nasty surprise. These darts could be thrown by hand from short distances, giving Roman infantry a hidden advantage before the main clash. Because of that lead weight, the plumbata flew with greater force and accuracy than you'd expect, piercing armor and shields far more effectively than ordinary javelins. Roman soldiers often carried several of these clipped to the inside of their shields, ready to unleash them at the start of battle. Imagine you're an enemy soldier. You're setting yourself up for the charge, and suddenly, out of nowhere, this rain of weighted darts comes flying at you. They're punching through shields, injuring your frontline fighters, and nobody saw them coming. It disrupted formations. It injured soldiers before they could even engage. It weakened morale. The plumbata wasn't the most famous Roman weapon, but it was one of the cleverest. Portable, surprising, deadly. Number 9. The ballista, Rome's crossbow on steroids. Right. Now we're getting into the heavy artillery. The Romans weren't just masters of infantry tactics, they revolutionized siege warfare, and the ballista was a key part of that. Picture a gigantic crossbow, powered by twisted ropes of sinew or even hair, capable of hurling massive bolts or stone projectiles with incredible force. Unlike catapults that lobbed rocks in a high ARC, the ballista fired straight and fast, like a sniper rifle, but ancient, and made of wood and twisted rope. This made it perfect for piercing walls, tearing through enemy ranks, or even taking out individual targets at long distances. Its accuracy shocked Rome's enemies. You could be standing on a city wall, feeling relatively safe, and suddenly a bolt the size of your arm punches straight through your mate's shield and keeps going. The psychological impact was just as devastating as the physical destruction it caused. Imagine facing a weapon that could kill you before you even saw it coming. The ballista proved that Roman warfare wasn't only about discipline and bravery. It was about terrifying innovation. Number 8. The onager, Rome's wild donkey of destruction. The onager earned its name from the Latin word for wild donkey because of the violent kick it produced when fired. Brilliant name, that. The siege engine was a type of catapult designed to hurl heavy stones over city walls or into enemy formations. Unlike the precise ballista, the onager relied on smashing power. When its twisted ropes released, the arm would whip forward with a thunderous crash, launching boulders that could shatter gates, demolish fortifications, and send enemies scattering in absolute panic. The noise alone was terrifying. It echoed across the battlefield like thunder, announcing destruction before it even arrived. The Romans used the onager to soften defenses before an infantry assault, proving that brute force was just as vital as precision. In many ways, it was ancient Rome's version of heavy artillery. Not subtle, not elegant, just raw, devastating power. You'd hear the distinctive crack, watch a boulder the size of a small car ARC through the sky, and then watch whatever it hits simply cease to exist. Effective doesn't begin to cover it. Number 7. The corvus, the boarding breed that won Roman navy. Right? This one's properly clever. Rome was not naturally a suffering power. They were landlubbers, really, infantry specialists. But during the Punic Wars against Carthage, they faced a problem. Carthage had the best navy in the Mediterranean, better ships, better sailors, better everything, nautical-wise. So what did Rome do? They invented the corvus, a boarding device that changed naval combat forever. Picture a giant wooden bridge, about 11 meters long, with a sharp spike at the end. When Roman ships drew close to enemy vessels, the corvus would drop down like a drawbridge, and that spike would bite into the opposing deck, locking the ships together. Suddenly, sea battles were no more longer about ramming or fancy maneuvering. They became hand-to-hand combat, Rome's specialty. This innovation completely neutralized Carthage's superior naval skills and allowed Roman soldiers to fight as if they were still on land. The corvus wasn't just a weapon, it was a tactical shift that turned the tide of war. It showed how ingenuity could transform a weakness into dominance. Rome took their greatest strength, infantry combat, and forced naval battles to be fought on their terms. Absolutely brilliant. Number 6. The lorica segmentata, the armor of Roman supremacy. The lorica segmentata was Rome's signature armor. You've seen it in films, those overlapping metal strips fastened with leather straps. Unlike chainmail, which was heavy and less protective, the lorica segmentata provided superior protection whilst remaining flexible enough for proper mobility. Soldiers could march, fight, and maneuver without being weighed down like medieval knights. Its design was so effective that enemies often tried to replicate it but failed to make Roman craftsmanship. Beyond protection, it also gave the legions a uniform, intimidating appearance. An army of gleaming steel that looked utterly unstoppable. The armor symbolized Rome's discipline and the engineering brilliance. It wasn't invincible, nothing is, but against swords, arrows, and even spears, it gave Roman soldiers a massive edge. In many ways, the lorica segmentata was just as important as the weapons it defended against, turning Roman legions into near unstoppable war machines. Protection, mobility, intimidation, the complete package. Number 5. The Scorpio, Rome's deadly precision shooter. The Scorpio, or Roman Scorpion, was a smaller, more portable version of the ballista. Think of it as the Roman equivalent of a sniper rifle. It could shoot iron-tipped bolts at incredible speed and accuracy, capable of piercing armor and the shields with ease. Unlike the massive ballista, which required a whole team to operate, a Scorpio could be manned by just 1 or 2 soldiers. This made it perfect for both battlefield and the defensive use. They were often positioned on fortress walls or hidden in field formations, catching enemies off guard with lethal precision. In sieges, dozens of Scorpios firing together created a deadly rain of bolts that broke enemy morale before the main assault even began. You'd hear this distinctive twang, and the gunmen would just drop. No more warning, no more chance to defend, just sudden death from an unseen source. The weapon highlighted Rome's genius for blending engineering with battlefield strategy. It wasn't about overwhelming force, it was about surgical strikes, precision, fear. Number 4. The Chontus, the cavalry spear of Shake and Dia. Right? We need to talk about Roman cavalry for a moment. Rome is often remembered for its disciplined infantry, and rightly so, but its cavalry also played a crucial role in expansion. The Chontus was a long cavalry spear, often reaching up to 4 meters in length, designed for devastating charges. Unlike infantry spears, which were shorter and easier to maneuver, the Chontus was held with both hands, allowing cavalrymen to deliver powerful armor-piercing thrusts. When deployed in formation, a cavalry charge with lowered conti was an absolutely terrifying sight, capable of smashing enemy lines and scattering troops like leaves. It wasn't just about the spear itself, it was the psychological shot it carried. An unstoppable wall of horsemen thundering forward, these massive spears leveled like lances, the ground shaking, the noise deafening. The Chontus gave Roman cavalry the punch they needed to complement the legions, ensuring no more enemy could rest easy, even if they'd survived the infantry assault. Number 3. The Testudo formation, the living weapon of Rome. Now, sometimes the most effective weapon wasn't forged in iron, it was forged in discipline. The Testudo, or tortoise formation, was a Roman battlefield tactic where soldiers interlocked their shields above and around them, forming an armored shell. Arrows, rocks, even flaming missiles would rain down harmlessly on this moving fortress. It's one of the most iconic images of Roman warfare, and for good reason. In sieges, testudo formations allowed legions to approach walls under heavy fire, giving them the protection needed to deploy battering rams, ladders, or siege towers. It wasn't flashy like a sword or siege engine. It wasn't dramatic, but it demonstrated the true strength of the Roman army. Unity, coordination, discipline. The enemies, it must have seemed like an invincible machine, steadily advancing no matter what was thrown at it. You could fire every arrow you had, drop rocks, pour boiling oil, and the thing just kept coming. Slow, methodical, inevitable. That testudo made Roman legions both feared and admired across the ancient world. Number 2. Roman siege towers, moving fortresses of doom. When Rome laid siege to enemy cities, they brought with them one of the most intimidating machines of the ancient world, the siege tower. These massive wheeled structures were essentially mobile fortresses, often several stories high, covered in protective hides or what materials to resist fire. Inside, soldiers would climb ladders to reach the top, where they could storm directly onto enemy walls. Imagine defending a city and seeing one of these things rolling towards you. It's massive, it's fire resistant, and yet as filled with angry Romans who've been marching for weeks and they really want to get this over with. Siege towers also carried archers and the artillery, raining destruction from above as they advanced. Combined with battering rams and the catapults, they made city defenses nearly obsolete. The psychological terror of watching a towering war machine slowly rolling towards your walls was often enough to crush morale before the first clash. Some cities surrendered just from seeing these things appear on the horizon. Can't blame them, really. Siege towers proved that Roman warfare was about strategy as much as brute force. They didn't just fight harder, they fought smarter. Now, number 1, and this is the big one, the weapon that truly made Rome unstoppable. Roman roads, the silent weapon of empire. Wait, roads? Yes, roads. Hear me out. It might not look like a weapon, but the Roman road system was the most powerful tool of conquest Rome ever created. Stretching over 250,000 miles, these roads allowed legions to march faster than any enemy could possibly anticipate. They could move supplies, reinforcements, and the siege equipment with unmatched speed and efficiency. A Roman army could appear hundreds of miles away in just days, striking before opponents had time to prepare or even realize they were coming. Roads also enabled communication across vast distances, ensuring commanders could coordinate campaigns with precision. Intelligence flowed. Orders arrived. The entire empire operated like a well-oiled machine because of these roads. Even after battles were won, the roads held conquered territory together, spreading Roman influence, trade, and the culture to every corner of the empire. Think about it. All those brilliant weapons we've talked about, the gladius, the pilum, the siege towers, they would have been absolutely useless without the logistical backbone of the roads. You can have the best army in the world, but if you can't get them where they need to be, when they need to be, sir, you're stuffed. The roads solved that problem completely. This silent weapon is why Rome didn't just fight wars. It built an empire that lasted centuries. Roads connected, roads enabled, roads conquered. They were the circulatory system of the greatest empire the ancient world had ever seen. And there you have it. 12 Roman weapons and the innovations that forever changed the face of warfare. Some were brutal, others were brilliantly engineered. But together, they gave Rome the power to dominate for centuries. Which weapon surprised you the most? Was it the devastating siege engines, the ingenious testudo formation, or the unexpected number 1, Rome's legendary road network? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We genuinely love hearing from you lot. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Roman military innovation, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more epic stories from history's greatest empires. There's so much more to explore, from ancient battles to forgotten weapons to the strategies that shaped civilizations. Thanks for watching, and do remember, Rome may have fallen, but its weapons and its legacy still echo through time. The roads they built? Some are still in use today. That's not just history, that's immortality, right? Until next time, cheers!